Welcome to the NBA playoffs, where some of the craziest things happen,
James on the drive for the win!
where some of the most unexpected things happen,
Oh, look at the defense. Green, steal.
where superstars and teams get immortalized. The playoffs always have something special in mind. And one of those unexpected things, the first seed, favored to win the championship, getting upset by the underdogs at the other end of the spectrum. This has happened numerous times in the history of the league. For one to happen, all the right ingredients have to come, like a weakness in the first seed superstar.
Turnover.
If you can name one thing on an NBA bingo, it's probably these upsets. With this year's playoffs happening imminently, let's take a look back at the history of 8-seed upsets, some more and more incredible than others. Buckle up and stick around for something interesting. All leagues must have a champion, but the way on who should be the champion varies in different leagues. Consensus though, the playoffs. It was decided that having those would best determine number one for a multitude of reasons, but one reason that benefits the league, it creates hype, which in turn can lead to increased game viewership and money. As such, when the NBA starts its journey in 1946 as the Basketball Association of America, or the BAA, the rules were set that the top 3 teams in both divisions would qualify for the bracket. Yes, there were just 6 teams back then. Over time, the playoff structure and qualification allowance changed as more and more teams piled up, thus leading us to today, where we have things like the play-in, first round, second round, you name it. Today's modern rules can lead to the benefit of the teams. In most cases, the second seed would defeat the 7th seed, as that second seed might have the better defense and offense, or a more stacked roster. Most cases. Not all. Sometimes there are moments where the 7th seed beats the 2nd seed, and there are a variety of reasons for that. But to simplify things, we said earlier that the 7th seed might have a weakness to exploit the 2nd seed has. These weaknesses can range from glaring flaws to something so subtle only brilliant coaches might notice it. As, of course, we can apply the same most cases argument for the 1st and 8th seeds, although these occurrences are even more sporadic. Now that we've done a little bit of explanation, let's get into the history. The first 8 vs 1 upset occurred in 1994, 1 year after Michael Jordan retired for the first time. The Seattle Supersonics, who led the league with 63 wins and a net rating of plus 9.5, came to face off the Denver Nuggets in round 1, who only W'd in 42 games. The Nuggets had barely scraped through to make it to the playoffs, and they had no All-Stars in the roster, and it seemed like the Supersonics had yet another warm-up to prepare for a potential championship-winning season. The issues the Sonics had: questionable chemistry, head-weak mentality, and how predictable their playing style was. After going up 2-0 in the series, tensions boiled over. Gary Payton and Ricky Pierce had a physical altercation in the locker room, which created fractures. Despite their athletic dominance, observers and team members later described the squad as mentally fragile. They relied so heavily on an aggressive, high-energy, trap-heavy defense system to overwhelm teams during the regular season that they struggled to adapt when that system was countered. The system was designed to dominate 82 games by forcing turnovers and creating opportunities for fast breaks, lacking half-court offense in the postseason when pace slowed down. Fundamentally, they were a drive-to-the-rim team. Dikembe Mutombo, arguably the Nuggets' best player, gave serious trouble. Mutombo had spectacular length and shot-blocking abilities. The Sonics couldn't have a plan B. Denver could just take their time to dismantle the Sonics' traps. The Tides turned over quickly. Mutombo neutralized the Sonic star center in Sean Kemp, limiting him to a dismal 37% from the field. Denver won Game 3, 110-93, as small forward Reggie Williams exploded for 31 points and 8 assists. They controlled the paint and the glass, especially in the fourth quarter where the Sonics looked overwhelmed. Game 4 went to overtime as the Sonics did everything they could but still couldn't prevail, 94-87. In the deciding game, the Sonics were playing at their arena, but that didn't stop the Nuggets. Once again, they won overtime, 98-94, completely dominating with the boards. At the end of the game, Mutombo collapsed onto his back, clutched the ball, and we were served one of the most famous images in NBA history. More 8 vs 1 upsets came to fruition for the rest of the decade and into the 2000s. The next victim was the 1999 Miami Heat. Led by Alonzo Mourning and company, they tied the Magic and Pacers for the best record in the East, 33-17. Miami faced the Knicks, featuring Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell, and a 36-year-old Patrick Ewing. The 1998-99 season was locked out and only 50 games were scheduled, so players arrived with less conditioning, having to deal with a schedule that was pretty damn squeezed. This matchup was going to be the 3rd consecutive time both teams met up in the postseason. With the Knicks and Heat rivalry continuing, the Heat's problems weren't as significant as with the Sonics, but the Heat still lacked an elite closer or one that could take over a game. Their offense relied heavily on one player, Tim Hardaway, with his playmaking and shooting. Jamal Mashburn was intended to be the team's high-scoring offensive weapon, but faced struggles with consistency and injuries this season. He wasn't the reliable go-to player needed to neutralize runs by an opponent like New York. Miami was coached by Pat Riley, famous for building teams, like this one, with physical, defensive toughness. The Knicks team was built with the exact same philosophy, so games became low-scoring and slower, making margin for error thinner. The Knicks went up 2-1, and the Heat won Game 4 to force a decider. In Game 5, the Heat had led at halftime, but New York slowly climbed back, ultimately hitting a buzzer beater from Allen Houston with 1 second left that broke South Beach's hearts. The final score was 78-77. In the next decade, only one 8 vs 1 upset occurred, but what happened is arguably the most iconic of them all. In 2007, after the Warriors made the playoffs for the first time since 1994, their opponent was the Dallas Mavericks, who finished 67-15 in one of the best regular season runs of all time. The Warriors won 25 games less, and it was only after a late season carry where they won 9 of their last 10 games to break through to their seed. But even in the regulars, Dallas had some trouble with Dub Nation. In both of their meetups, the Warriors took the W. The Mavericks MVP winner in Dirk Nowitzki had many flaws the Warriors coach Don Nelson could see. Nelson had previously coached the Mavericks too, so he had years of experience watching Nowitzki blossom. But that also meant, because Nelson was on the other side now, he could use that same acquired knowledge to realize that there were areas that Dirk hadn't completely polished yet. Don Nelson made a game plan which prioritized physical play against Dirk. The Warriors defenders, including smaller, stronger players like All-Star Baron Davis, were tasked with pestering Dirk's blindside and pushing him off his spots. This exploited Dirk's lack of leg strength at the time, forcing him away from his preferred mid-range and high-post areas. Dirk's back-to-the-basket game was still developing. He was prone to ball handling errors when faced with aggressive double teams. The Warriors constantly forced him to put the ball on the floor too early or challenged him in areas where he lacked the structural discipline he would later master. And finally, the Mavs offense was heavily dependent on Dirk operating from the high post. When the Warriors successfully clogged the passing lanes and pressured him, the team lacked secondary playmakers who could consistently create shots. The Warriors shocked Dallas by winning Game 1 and by 12 points, where Davis dropped 33 and 14. They then took a 3-1 lead and even blew them out in Game 3 by 18 points. The Mavs revealed in Game 5, forcing Game 6, but they completely collapsed. Golden State had an even bigger blowout, winning 111-86. Dirk Nowitzki that game had been limited to just 8 points on a horrible 15% from the field. Dirk's averages dropped down significantly compared to the regulars. Just 19 points per game with compromised efficiency was all he could put up. In the 2010s, two 8 vs 1 upsets occurred, and the first was in 2011. The San Antonio Spurs had just clinched the best record at 61-21, and they were going to face the grit and grind Memphis and Grizzlies, who had missed the postseason a year prior. Just before the Spurs acquired Kawhi Leonard in the offseason, the status quo of the team was that, despite a stacked roster, San Antonio was simply too small and physically weak to handle the Grizzlies' frontcourt rotation of Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol. The Spurs had to rely on an aging Tim Duncan and Antonio McDyess to protect the rim, which didn't pan out well. Duncan was transitioning from an offensive engine to a defensive anchor. He was playing the fewest minutes of his career and was dealing with a nagging ankle injury that severely limited his mobility. The team was built around his gravity, and when he couldn't anchor the defense or command double teams, the entire Spurs system that relied on crisp passing and spacing began to fray. He was forced to play against younger, faster bigs, and he simply didn't have the burst to keep up. Memphis was one of the best counters. In addition, the Spurs were still heavily reliant on the pick and roll between Tony Parker and their own bigs. Memphis had the perfect defensive utilities to hedge and recover against Parker's high pick and roll. Because the Spurs lacked a dominant isolation scorer who could create offense when the set play broke down, they often went through long scoring droughts when Memphis forced them into a half-court grind. Memphis shocked the Spurs in 6, including an 18-point blowout in Game 4. Randolph averaged 21, 9, and 3 throughout the series. The closeout was helped with Randolph scoring 31 and Gasol's 13 rebounds. Memphis later also forced the even younger OKC Thunder to 7 games in the second round. The second of the decade was only 1 year later. The 2012 Bulls, who finished 50-16, being out the Big 3 Miami Heat, faced the 76ers. But before the Bulls were even able to start being comfy, Derrick Rose tore his ACL at the end of Game 1. They won 103-91. Without Rose, the Bulls' momentum was completely shattered. The Bulls' center, Joakim Noah, also struggled through a left ankle injury that eventually led him to also sit out for the remainder of the series. In the heat of the moment, the 76ers won 3 games in a row to bring it to 3-1. Chicago fought back in Game 5, just scraping through in a 77-69 victory. Game 6 came down to the wire. With 25 seconds to go, the Bulls had a 3-point lead and had a free throw opportunity with Omer Asik on the line. However, Asik missed both free throws, Andre Iguodala drew his own shooting foul but made both, and Bulls guard CJ Watson attempted a desperate heave that was blocked. The Philly crowd went absolutely wild, and over the next 14 years, the Bulls never reached this amount of success again. Our last upset we're going to talk about happened 3 seasons ago, the Heat versus the Bucks. Milwaukee finished with a 58-24 record, while Miami went 44-38. But during the 2023 playoff run to the finals, where Jimmy Butler had a carry so memorable, it also gave birth to this meme, Miami absolutely squashed the Bucks. After the series was tied 1-1, Butler turned on X Games mode. He scored 30 in Game 3, 56 in Game 4, and 42 in Game 5. looking like the best player on the planet. Milwaukee couldn't contain Jimmy, and Giannis' injury, a bruised lower back, contributed to these losses. In Game 4 and 5, Milwaukee had leads in the fourth quarter, but both were catastrophically stripped away. Miami was raining threes, and in a decider, the game went to overtime, and the series was closed out. We have now reached present day. 8 vs 1 sweeps have only happened 6 times ever since the league expanded the playoffs to 16 teams in the 1983-84 season. And when the 7th one happens, we can't wait to see how the events unfold. Now, what do you guys think? What was the biggest upset of all upsets that we talked about? Is it the 2023 Heat? The 1994 Nuggets? Put it down in the comment section below. Anyways, I'm some random Xander. This is it for the video, and remember guys, stay random. Goodbye.